Sri Gurubhe Namaha. My humble obeisance to all my teachers. Today, I'm going to talk about a very important experience of my life. It is an experience that changed how I perceive myself, how I live my life, and how I interact with other people. It is also important because it has made me realize certain things about my philosophies of life and my identity, who I am, and various aspects of my life. It is through an experience that has to do with my reading of the Srimad Bhagvat Gita, and therefore is both spiritual and religious in nature. So the particular teaching or the verse that I am going to talk about today and the experience surrounding that verse, and so it's probably better if I start off mentioning what that particular verse is. And in my life, or in my opinion, I have perceived that particular verse to be perhaps the most important one in the Bhagavad Gita, in my opinion. So the verse is from the second chapter, verse number 47, and it is perhaps also one of the most popular and well-known verses from the Bhagavad Gita. In Sanskrit, the verse reads, Karmanyevadhikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana ma karma phala hetur bhur ma te sangvo tsva akarmani. Translated into English, it reads, you have a right to perform your prescribed duty, but you are not entitled to the fruits of action. Never consider yourself the cause of the results of your activities, and never be attached to not doing your duty either. Now, obviously, this has been translated into by many learned people and has been interpreted, understood by a lot of scholars and non-scholars as well. And today I'm going to tell you how I came into contact and reading this verse, and how I understood this, and how I tried to practice it in my life, and what it meant to me, and how it transformed my life significantly. So to do that, I have to take you back several years ago. I was a first year engineering student in Indian Institute of Technology, Kharagpur, India. I was at the end of my first year, and I didn't do particularly well at the end of my first year of studies. And as a result, there's a long story to it, but as a result, what happened was I knew that based on my rank in class, I would miss out on a very good opportunity that would be granted to the toppers of my class, the top rank holders of my class. And the opportunity was to visit a US university for the summer and do research and internship over at a very well-known and renowned university in the US. Now, based on my results at the end of the first year, I knew that that opportunity wouldn't come my way because I was below the minimum rank required to get that opportunity. Now, obviously, this had sort of saddened me. This had saddened me, no doubt. More so because I used to be among the very good students in my high school, and that's why I did very well. I took a very hard and tough competitive IIT entrance examination, which actually has a very low success rate among Indian students who are graduating high school. So after having accomplished quite a bit of success, you can say, in that sense, I was now at the end of my first year in that institution. I was not among the top, and this doesn't necessarily mean I didn't study very hard. It just meant that there were people who are better than me. There are people in my class who are just simply better at studies than I ever have been or I ever could be. Now, so what should I do? And my GPA, my grades weren't particularly good, not as good as I had hoped or wanted them to be. So I considered myself to be more capable than what my results showed. Not only just that, it also meant that that opportunity of visiting the US university was also not in my reach anymore. So in that kind of a situation, I had a long summer break at the end of my first year. So about 3 months of summer break with literally nothing to do except what you choose to do. So going into my second year, I was thinking that what is it that I can do to perhaps get back my opportunity or even do better than what I'm doing. So here I have to thank my father, because every time I traveled, especially because this was a residential school away from my hometown of Kolkata, so he used to put a copy of the Bhagavad Gita in my luggage all the time. Never quite really asked me to read it in particular. Of course, while putting it, he would probably mention that, when you get a chance, give it a read. And I never quite took him very seriously, because as a 16, 17, 18-year-old, I'm not a particularly religious person, never quite knew what that book meant. But in this long break, simply for the want of a better way to spend my time, I landed across that book and I took it out, and I thought that, well, if my father wanted me to read it and put it in my bag, let me just read it. Let me just find out what it is. Lots of people say very good things about this. So I just started reading it, and there are very clear 18 chapters. And what I did every evening, I would read one chapter, but with all honest and genuine interest, and I would try to learn from it what it said. Now, I did read and finish it in 18 days, and I started to implement many of the teachings in the book. And the most important one that I tried to implement was the one verse that I read out to you earlier. And I told myself, how should I go about doing this, right? And what it says is that I have a responsibility and a right, not just a responsibility, I have a right to my actions. So all that I am capable of performing are my actions without being attached to the outcome. Now here, imagine my situation, although it's a specific situation in my life, but I'm sure many of you find yourself in situations that are analogous, if not similar, where you find yourself working towards something with little or no hope of success. What do you do under that situation? Do you continue to do what you are doing? Do you give up? Or what is the whole point? We very often get mired in these questions. We ask ourselves, does it even make sense to keep doing what we're doing? Should we change course? Should we, should we give up? Should we do something else? So obviously doing something else was not an option, because I was in the IIT and I had to finish my degree and get my degree and find a job and whatever it is that my future wanted or I had to do in the future. So giving up studies was not an option, and I knew that I didn't quite study as hard as I probably should have or could have. So what I started doing was not worry about that particular internship, which may or may not happen. I just started studying really hard to the best of my ability. And when I mean I started studying very hard, I don't mean that I never played, I never, had fun with my friends. None of that. I did do all of that, but I also very sincerely started studying. And not for a second, well, as little as I could, cared about whether or not I'll get that particular internship. What happened was, at the end of my first semester of trying to implement this teaching, my grades skyrocketed. They were higher than I could ever imagine they would be. And even before the semester ended, I could see myself doing well in assignments, I could see myself doing well in labs. Every time I started studying, I used to tell myself that this is my right. My right is to perform the action, to study, and this is what I will do. Whether the results turned out well or not is not my concern. We will see how that happens. I've never quite experimented with myself in this way, but I guess it can't be too bad, right? All I'm doing is really studying, so how bad can it be? So I kept on studying very genuinely, and I tried to put in my best efforts, and my grades improved. And that continued for all the several semesters till my graduation. And surprisingly, what happened was, because I was doing well in studies, a professor liked to work with me and engaged me in his research activities and so on. And that eventually led me to go to a university in Italy and stay there for a couple of months and do a research project there. The point of saying this is because I did miss the opportunity to go to the good US university, but I ended up somewhere else, and it was a different experience coming out of going to a foreign country, learning how that university worked. It's a great exposure. Not the exact one that probably I would have wanted, but I got another one, if not equally valuable, but quite valuable. And something probably that wouldn't have happened if I had given up studying and if I just didn't take my studies seriously enough at that point of time. So this is a little success that I wanted to share with you, and but that is only one aspect. So there are many students out there, perhaps if you are listening to my talk, you may or may not be doing as well as you deserve or as well as you want to do. My request to you is pay attention to this verse if you want to. Take your studies seriously, put in your best effort. Don't worry about an immediate assignment, don't worry about an immediate grade. If they're good, very well. If they're not, just move on and keep studying, keep doing your best. This works like magic. Over the long run, you will be rewarded. Things always work out. That is my experience. Ever since that summer vacation happened several years ago. Now, coming to different aspects of life, right? This is somewhat professional experience. You will probably find this not just if you're a student or studying something, you will find this at work too. Sometimes we work for very long hours, we put in a lot of effort, and we don't get rewarded. And we don't get the success that we want. Sure, that is how the world works. The world is unfair, as we all know, and we talk and we share all the time. The world is indeed unfair. So you will not be rewarded every single time you put in your best effort. But remember what this verse says, you have a right to perform your karma, and you are not entitled to the fruits of your actions. So whether you fail or you succeed, neither is your doing. Your doing is only your karma. The success is also belongs to the Supreme God. The failure also is the work of the Supreme God. Now, whether you believe in a God being or not, regardless, the way to take it, the way to understand or interpret, I think in a general way, is the universe has so many other factors that influence the outcome of your action, right? So there are so many other factors. There are other people involved. Their human errors are involved. Their judgment, subjective judgment, is involved in processing the action of your action into the outcome. You have no control over them, very limited, if at all. So the outcome is not really yours. And to be attached to that outcome as if it was solely dependent on your actions is to unnecessarily take your actions too seriously. I mean, you should take your actions seriously, but not the outcome of that action. And if you are successful, do not get vain or drunk in that success, because that success is also not yours. Neither the failure nor the success is yours. That is the beauty of this verse. However, I will admit that it is a very difficult thing to implement in practice. If you are trying to put in a 40-hour work week, it is nearly impossible to not expect anything in return. I totally understand that, and I am no saint, I am not a monk, I am not 100% perfect in implementing this verse. What is important though, you try. I think if you just try to implement this, and you succeed in implementing this in your life, maybe 10%, maybe 1%, maybe a fraction of 1%, it will improve your well-being and your outcomes significantly. That's what I'm saying. You don't have to be a perfectionist in implementing this verse. If you were a perfectionist in implementing this verse, I don't know, you would probably reach perfection of existence. That's a very lofty aim. It's good to aim to be a perfectionist, but I don't think we should discourage ourselves from starting simply because the perfect form of implementation of this verse is just too hard. It is very hard. It is sufficient perhaps day to day normal life to implement this even up to 1% of what this detachment suggests. So if you want to study very hard, if you want to work very hard, think about perhaps to not think at all about what the outcome is really difficult. All I'm suggesting is you try to detach emotionally from that expectation as much as you can. Because remember, neither the success nor the failure is for you to claim. And if you internalize this notion, this concept a little bit, it might become ever so easier to achieve this. So that is all I'm trying to say, and that is all I'm trying to tell you, is that take upon yourself the responsibility of performing your karma or your actions, and do not be attached to the outcome. A few other examples that I can think of in my own personal life is I used to be 6 feet 2 inches tall, and I just used to weigh 64 kilograms. So I used to be a very scrawny teenager growing up. Not very uncommon, nothing to be, nothing to worry about, but that's how most tall teenagers are, generally speaking. But I was very self-conscious about my body image, and I always wanted to become muscular, become athletic, and become strong. Now, every time I started to go to the gym, I would watch all these, strong bodybuilding and athletic type guys around me, and they're doing so well, they're lifting such heavy weights, things that I could never imagine myself doing. But even at that stage of my life, even at that moment, or in those moments, I told myself that, the other people around are not my competition. The other people there are not there to hurt me or harm me. I'm there to lift the little weights that I can and try to improve where I am. My karma is my right. I have the right to be there and lift the little weights that I can. The outcome is neither up to me nor is the failure. Every day I started going to the gym, I started working out, I started doing something that helped me. I believed that would work for me. I had my own workout routine and regimen with the help of an instructor, and I kept working out. As you know, as many of you might know who have ever stepped into a gym, it's not a one-day thing to transform your body. It takes several months and years. But today, after 10 years of working out, I think I'm very satisfied with my physique. I may not still be the best bodybuilder in the world, and I probably will never be, but I'm very happy with my own body image. I'm not self-conscious anymore. I weigh about 90 kilograms, still the same height, 6 feet 2 inches. So I have about 25 kilograms gain from where I was, and most of it hopefully is in muscles, not lots of fat. So that's what I mean, and I kept doing it. It took a long time. Of course, not 10 years. I started seeing transformations in my body image and my photographs in about a year, 2 years. I was doing pretty well. But it takes that kind of dedication, and you cannot get attached to the immediate outcome of your results. You have to perform your actions, you have to perform your karma without hoping or expecting you will get rewards. I kept on doing it. Eventually, in the long run, I do consider myself successful. In my own view, in my own yardstick, I think I'm very successful in achieving the body image that I want to. Another facet of your life would be perhaps your love life. Maybe you are in a relationship, maybe you love someone. Sometimes our relationships don't work out very well. Sometimes we struggle in expressing what we want to say. Sometimes we struggle in achieving the kind of bliss or the relationship that we want. And a lot of people go through troubles like this, including myself. And when these moments came, I started to implement karma yoga from this verse in the Bhagavad Gita, even in relationships. What you will find is, what I found is, I asked myself, did I give the very best that I can give to the person I love? Did I do my best? and I tried to do my best even in the relationship. So that improved things, that cleared my conscience, and that improved the state of affairs significantly. Once again, I'm saying, what I'm trying to say is, whether it's in your professional life, whether it's in your personal life, whether it's things like your sports, your bodybuilding endeavors, whether it's your studies, whether it's your relationship, whatever be the aspect, I think the philosophy to keep in mind is you have the right to perform your karma, to perform your actions. You have no right over the outcome, whether it's a success or a failure. And that fact is very liberating. Use that to liberate your mind of the burden of expectations. Do what you think is the best to do, to the best of your ability. Just a word of caution, the tail end of the verse also says that never be attached to not doing your actions. And this, I believe, is an injunction to caution you against procrastination. Inaction is also advised against. So while you have the right to perform your karma, remember, you do not have the right to not perform your karma. So if I think of all the great scholars like Swami Vivekananda, who is known as the greatest karma yogi of our times, think about his life, how he performed his karma relentlessly. Obviously, I'm not suggesting that you or I can become what Swamiji is or was. However, our humble attempts at even implementing this, to whatever small extent we can, I think can significantly make an impact on our life and on the lives of people and living beings around us. Just the trial, just the effort, just the starting point. I think these go a long way. With that, I'm going to end today. This is the experience from my life that I wanted to share with you. I believe that this has benefited me a lot, and I want to encourage you, and those of you who are perhaps struggling with any aspect of your life, or not even struggling with any aspect of your life, if you just want to experience a better well-being and a better way of living and being, just give this a try. Just try to implement. Don't worry about being a perfectionist. Don't worry about achieving this to the fullest perfect extent. Just do your best. Try to implement karma yoga a little bit by bit, and it is very similar to the exercise of the body, the exercise of the mind. Only by trying and crawling step by step progress can we get somewhat close to the perfect point. It is very hard to be all the way perfect. However, our efforts are bound to improve where we are today. With that, thank you, and I hope you find the successes that you want.